listen to records, smell the cover, read all the verses. Tell me about your favorites on Vinyl and Vision.
Hello and welcome to the newest episode of Vinyl and Vision. I am your host, Jimmy Drab, and this is my show. Tonight's special guest is John Tabor Jacobson, best known around the city as JJ. JJ, I had only gotten to meet finally after a long mythological existence to me as this figurehead in the Providence music scene of like that just knew everybody. Anybody that was anybody that I knew musically always told me stories about JJ, and so I thought it was pretty significant to be able to speak with him, get him on the show to just talk about the history a little bit in the city, as far as the scene is concerned. Because we have an amazing music scene in Rhode Island. Like I've never been one to try to push it here on the show, but obviously all of my guests are from Rhode Island, mostly actually. But even Peter Prescott in my last interview from the last episode had said he's just like he has been blown away by the amount of talent that we have in this city, and he's right. He's absolutely correct, and I didn't actually give that statement enough credit on the previous episode, and I just want to acknowledge that now because JJ as well feels the same about the music scene and the musicians here in the city. And I have to agree with them. I have to absolutely agree. We are very fortunate here. So those of you who are listening and tuning in from outside of the state, listen up, guys. We're here, okay? And JJ gave me these. He found some split 7-inch singles that he had put out with his old label, Over the Counter Records (OTC), back in the early to mid '90s. And these are very, very rare. I'm not going to say that they're extremely valuable. I think that they're kind of valuable because I've been hearing a lot about this band, especially Von Ryan's Express. Dan St. Jake's, the former guest of mine from the first or the second episode, technically, was in this band, and he mentions how this was the first band he was in. And there's been a lot of talk on the social media recently that I caught about this band and how there's very little recorded evidence of them even existing. So this is one piece of it. It's only one song, and I'm going to play it for you because I want you to hear it. And if you want a copy of this, Von Ryan's Express split 7-inch with the Laurels. Laurels also an amazing local Providence band back from the early 90s. Message me, please. Send me a message. Email me through the podcast, songcrafter666@gmail.com. Follow me on social medias. You can find Vinyl and Vision on Instagram and Facebook. You can message me there. Send me a DM. Don't make it gross. Don't make it a dick pic. Don't care for it. And message me about this. I'd like to kick some of this money to JJ, obviously, because they're his first and foremost. He just knew I was a record seller, so he was just like, try to sell these for me. I got a few of them. So I have about like 15 of these right now. So just send a message. We'll work it out. I'll send you a PayPal link or something, and I'll ship it off to you. And as far as the show is concerned, JJ's awesome, man. Just listen up. It was a great little talk we had. The video is a little shorter. I actually cut it down a lot, about over half an hour. And that's only because I screwed up and I messed up one of my cameras. So I only got one camera angle. I was just like, well, we're using it as like a trailer for the episode. So if you like what you're seeing on the video, tune into the full-length audio stream anywhere you find your podcasts, and you can get the full story there. And for now, listen to this, message me, do all the things you do with the internet, and thank you. We appreciate it. Then we should be fine.
Are we rolling?
We're rolling, babe.
Awesome.
How are you, JJ?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little sleepy, but the coffee I just had, hopefully will start taking effect soon.
Does it hit you hard, the coffee?
Not really. I am perpetually exhausted. I don't know if I told you this. I take some crazy a targeted chemotherapy drug called Sprycel for leukemia.
Right.
So it keeps me alive. Without it, I would die. So,
right.
But one of the byproducts is just fatigue. So I probably drink about half a gallon of coffee a day.
Oh wow!
To just keep. So it's not really like it kicks in. It's just like keeping. Otherwise, I'll be like a narcoleptic. I'll just like fall asleep during the interview.
Did you used to drink a lot of coffee, or no? This is a
no,
side effect.
I mean, I was like normal people. If you drink a half a gallon of coffee, you're gonna get the jitters. But I never get the jitters.
You can just have a cup and just go straight back to sleep.
Yeah,
yeah. I'm actually like that now. So I wonder if I'm sick.
Yeah, it's a tolerance thing plus a fatigue thing.
So you had leukemia, and as of right now, you are in remission. Is that the correct term?
Yeah. Well, what do they call it? It's the technical term is complete molecular response. So what that means is that the drugs they're giving me is preventing there from being any detectable leukemia in my system. But I did go on a trial run of going off of it because some people can stay off of it after a couple years, and it came back within 40 days.
Oh my God!
So now I'm on it for a 5-year course before they might try that again. So it definitely altered my life. Getting diagnosed with leukemia. Actually, that's right when I was working with you when I'm at Crate and Barrel.
Oh yeah,
was when I had it, but I didn't know it. I knew something was wrong, but I wasn't sure. I didn't have healthcare at the time.
Yeah.
So then when I got diagnosed and went through all that, it was definitely a milestone in my life.
I'm sure it would be. I mean, as it would be for anybody, I think. I mean, that's, facing death, right? Like the possibility of it. And
yeah, for me, it was two things. It was getting used to the medication. So like the physical part of that and just feeling like I couldn't take care of myself, at least, especially at the beginning. There's a phase with the medication where you have to get used to it. And that was just brutal. I was on a couch for 3 months, basically, just getting, having headaches and just getting used to it. Yeah. And the other one was the financial part of it, because the medication, if it's not subsidized, and almost everyone gets some form of, no one pays full retail, but it is $180,000 a year. The pill's $500 a day. Jesus so Christ. That figuring out how to navigate that was a tricky situation.
Yeah, even with health insurance, because you started this.
Well,
after
I
you
got Obamacare, and that's how I found out I had it. Because I was just like had all kinds of kind of complaints, and they started just running tests. Yeah, I'd had seen a doctor in maybe 7 years, and then they came back that they detected something, and then I got all these tests, and then with the healthcare that I have, it's not a big deal, as big a deal financially. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, because I have health insurance, and I don't think that mine covers much of anything. Yeah. I'm kind of scared to see if anything happens, and me trying to call up and use some of it for whatever reason.
Basically, like the way that it works in America is if it gets really weird or off the rails, people go bankrupt, and then you get Medicaid. And or a variety of other strategies. You figure it out, but it's not logical. It's
It's more like survival tactics.
Yeah, a lot of people who have cancer definitely go bankrupt because of because also you can't really provide for yourself. So in my case, I'm a single man. I don't have like a family that lives around here, so like supporting myself and everything. Yeah, it becomes a little bit of a tricky situation. Luckily, in my case, it's taken a while to figure things out and untangle kind of a big mess. Mm-hmm. But I finally, as of really probably this summer, feel as though I'm used to the new normal. Don't feel like I'm in a free fall financially or health wise, and
that's great.
Yeah, it's definitely good.
I'm glad to hear it, man.
I don't know if this will be part of the...
oh, yeah.
Yeah, it will be? Okay.
Oh, I mean, at least a little bit. I think that it's interesting for people to know. While you were talking about this, because, I mean, I don't think I've ever talked to anybody, even on the show. I mean, like just even my personal life. Anyone that has had any kind of like major cancer. And
I still can't believe it. It still seems kind of unreal to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird. I mean, mine's CML leukemia, so it's a kind of an interesting cancer because it's a really aggressive cancer. Mm-hmm. The way I would die from this if I didn't have this medication is my white blood cells would keep replicating and not maturing and crowd out every other type of cell, and eventually my bones would explode.
Jesus Christ.
And yeah, once your bones explode, it's game over.
That sounds like a really painful death too.
Yeah, it would really suck. But the upside to this cancer is that it's really stupid, is what the doctors say. So in other words, it can't mutate. So it's one of the very first what they call targeted chemotherapies, where they have a pill that you take that blocks the mutation. Yeah. The pill has, depending on where you are in life and your health and varying side effects. From people, I'm on a couple like user groups online, like support groups, from very mild to minimal side effects to can't stay on it, like because the quality of life is, I mean, it's just so horrific. I'm like in the middle, so wow, I'm a lucky one.
To freak out all the hypochondriacs, what kind of symptoms were you experiencing before you realized or before you got diagnosed?
Well, that's kind of it was fatigue mainly, and just kind of
it wasn't just
brain
mono?
fog. I mean, I just thought I was getting old, or I didn't know what was going on. Like everyone I know is exhausted and overwhelmed.
I'm extremely tired. I'm scared for my life now.
So, but the blood work. Yeah, came back and they had run blood work, I think, just for cholesterol, like just to do normal blood work stuff. And then my white blood cell count was off the charts, and that's how they're like,
That became suspicious to them.
Yeah, and then you go to a hematologist and oncologist, and actually the way they found out in the end was they do a bone marrow tap, I guess is what you call it. Oh. And, I mean, do you want me to continue with the cancer story? Or is it, well, I'll tell, so here, it's a kind of a funny story, actually, the bone marrow tap. So, it turns out my oncologist, and I don't think she ever knew it, and I never told her before I got a new one, I had asked her out on a bunch of dates on OkCupid, right? So it was kind of just a funny situation from the get-go, because I went in there and just like, oh, here's this like hot. And it was also the first time I've ever had a doctor that was like kind of my age. Oh. You know, like this. You know, she was a very accomplished.
And you were obviously already interested in her.
I was interested in her. So that makes definitely. It a little awkward. She was a pretty lady, and so it was a very bizarre procedure because she also had a very attractive friend nurse. And to do this, you kind of have to get naked and put on your pants. Oh, okay. And you're like, I was on my side with like my ass, you know,
in their
pointed
direction
at them. And they put on the television. And the television, for some reason, was a woman that was smashing stuff with her breasts. I have no idea why that was on the television, but it was just like kind of, and then they eventually changed it.
Did they need you to be aroused? I don't understand what's happening.
No. They just like, they wanted to put something on to just distract me.
Oh, and it just happened to be.
And it happened to be that. I think it was like, it wasn't like naked because it was in like a bikini top. Okay. But you know, she's like smashing beer cans and melons and stuff. So it's a very surreal situation. And, but it's painful because when you're doing a tap into the bone, they're like drilling into the bone, right? And so they numb the area. And so that's not very painful, but it was taking forever. Huh. And I'm like looking behind her, and it's like she's like, I mean, it wasn't sexual at all, but it was just a funny, farcical situation because she's breaking a sweat, and she's like just like pounding, you know, like behind me, and I'm just like, you know, taking it kind of really not in the ass, but right next to the ass.
Oh, wow.
And
I wonder why they have to tap there.
It's like the big bone, right? Like, you know, right there, like right at I have a little dimple there. Huh. But anyway, So
I think that the shin is more exposed here, isn't it?
maybe, but for some reason they like, or maybe she was,
Taking advantage
of the situation.
Yeah.
Could have been like some kind of weird Dr. Me Too moment, but probably not.
Well, maybe she realized you from the profile, which is like put you through the ringer.
Yeah.
Put you through the full test before she.
Yeah, she was going to see how tough I was.
Yeah.
But so it's going on and on. She's breaking a sweat. I'm starting to be like, geez, what's going on? And eventually she broke through, right? And when at that point, there's no numbing in there. And that was a very distinct, horrible, unique pain once. And then they go in there and they grab a piece of marrow. So anyway, and then shortly thereafter, I got another oncologist, and she disappeared. She went to Boston, but so and also right after that, I got on a megabus to New York City, and didn't realize that it wasn't going to be good to sit for a long time. I probably would have just laid on my belly. So I was on a megabus for 3.5 hours with a bunch of rowdy girls who were going to see like the Today Show or something, And they were drinking just like crazy and just being noisy and obnoxious. And when they got off the bus, I was like, where are you guys staying? They're like, no, we're just going to stay up all night. We have Ritalin. And they went off into New York City, and I'm like, wow, a bunch of girls from they were from West Warwick, probably like 18, all wasted, high on Ritalin, just going to stay up all night until the Today Show. That probably didn't go so well.
It's the land of dreams, New York City, really. I mean, I was telling Cory on the way here, actually, my New York stories and how there's not a single good, unfuzzy memory I have of being in New York City. Like, I used to always go there and just make a fucking time of it, just going out.
It is a good place.
Trashed.
It is a good place to let your freak flag fly.
Yeah, and I do miss it.
These girls were trouble. And they didn't make, the fact that I was in pain the whole time.
Oh, any more
pleasant. A bunch of screaming teenagers or whatever. But,
yeah.
So anyway, that's how I found out that I for sure had it. Was they actually did a sample of the marrow. They looked at it. Oh, there was it's called, I think, the fish test. I forget. There's so many. I get blood work every 3 months, and they do different levels. But the ultimate one, I think, is called the fish test.
Yeah.
PHISH. I have no idea why it's called that. And then
they're a big fan of the band?
I don't know. I didn't even think of the fish reference, but it's the fish test, and the goal is to hit complete molecular response, CMR, and I am CMR.
Cool. Congratulations, man.
So there's my leukemia story.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, I think that it's interesting. I think that some people, maybe that don't know about it very well, it's kind of interesting to kind of know about it. I mean, that's why I ask. Yeah. I didn't intend to bring up your illness. But it's all part of the story, really.
If you want to go back to early Providence, and that ties in more to this, definitely ties into this, the record of choice.
Yes.
When I was at RISD, I followed a lot of bands, and I think it was my senior year, or like shortly thereafter, started a record label. And wait, where am I going with this?
You started a label? So is that Sound Station 7 label? Sound Station 7 Records, is it?
No, I started, actually, to be completely accurate, it was Lonely Fat Boy Records at first. Mm-hmm. And there's a guy, James Schneider, and another Joyce, I'm going to forget her last name because she married my friend Matt White. Is Joyce Raskin?
Is that the bassist from Scares?
Yeah.
Yes, Joyce Raskin is her name, yeah.
She was in a band with James Schneider called Mr. 1000.
Okay.
And I just hastily helped them put that out. But then I got a little more serious about it. Didn't want people to think I was the lonely fat boy.
Okay.
Because it was just I don't know where that came about. It was something that I think James and I were trying to brainstorm record label ideas, and that just was thrown out there. Mm-hmm. But then the idea came up for Over the Counter Records.
Okay.
OTC.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, Ben McCosker was starting Load Records. And for a little bit there, like if you I think the first Boss Fuel or second Boss Fuel single was a joint release between us.
Okay.
And at some point, I realized that I didn't really like record label stuff at all. It wasn't my forte, but recording was.
Okay.
So I really liked, and I really like collaboration a lot. I like working with artists to help them realize a vision.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
So do you kind of consider yourself, at least at that time, to have been more of a producer?
Not producer so much. Maybe
Just
a
the
little
engineer?
bit. Like more of an engineer. More of kind of classic of that. I mean, a lot of people were doing 4-track, 8-track cassette, real DIY.
Right.
So like the idea of having a producer
Yeah.
was would have been kind of silly. I envisioned it more. Also, I don't have a ton of musical experience, or I consider a traditional producer to be like when I watched Tom Buckland do the Royal Crowns, he went into rehearse. They worked on the hooks. They worked on the structure of the songs. Really got into the musicianship.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I would never do that with bands.
Oh, okay.
Actually, what happened was, and this ties into the Wailing Ultimate, was that we ended up doing a compilation record, 2 of them. One was A Bitter Pill to Swallow.
Okay.
And then the second one was, this was on Load, was Repopulation Program.
Okay, I remember that one.
Yeah, and by that time, the studio was set up in what became Fort Thunder. It wasn't called that at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I just set up a studio, and we would have bands come and record every day.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I briefly tried to do a record label. Realized selling music is no fun. I had zero interest in it really.
Yeah.
I put out some things, but ended up focused on the recording, and then actually opened a recording studio, Soundstation 7.
Yeah.
Which was in an old firehouse.
Right.
In fact,
1870.
Mount Pleasant.
Valley,
Federal
technically?
Hill.
Is that technically Valley?
That is actually called Bear Hill or something weird.
Okay.
It's like where...
It's like Olneyville meets Valley meets Mount Pleasant. It's kind of like right in that triangular area.
It's a freaky location. I mean,
it was. I mean, I actually had never gone to the I had known about the studio. I think I maybe went for maybe a party or something, but I never recorded there.
Yeah.
I was never with any bands hanging out there. But yeah, so it was kind of like a legendary spot in my memory.
Yeah, now there's more spread of people throughout the Providence. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to remember. I remember when this goes back to early '90s, late '80s, the Six Finger Satellite House down on 6th Street or whatever it was.
The Parlor in Pawtucket.
No. This was in the East Side.
Oh, okay.
So the alternative or the cheap apartments were just get away from Brown a little bit on 6th Street, off Hope.
Okay.
And then there was a certain point, it was just economics. The rents keep going up, and then people jumped to the west side and Federal Hill, this area, the Armory, and there was always stuff going on in the mills down in Olneyville and stuff. But in terms of people living in apartments around here, in my experience, that started in the 90s. And what was a big factor of that was an early adopter was where Julian's is. That was a really important outpost at the time for people to go there and meet up and stuff, Right. Because at that time, there really wasn't a whole lot of stuff on... That's when I moved to the Firehouse, because it was... there had just been a real estate crash at that point in the beginning of the 90s here.
Yeah.
There was some big banking crisis.
Cool. So you took advantage of it, to find a building?
Yeah. And I was working at a typography place, Faces Typography, and I was delivering stuff to a record label there. They were a classical record label.
That was in that same
called
building?
Newport Classics. That was in the Firehouse.
Oh.
And they weren't recording at all. They were a label. And the sign went up, so I would drop off proofs and stuff because they would have to get films printed to do their CDs and stuff.
Yeah.
And we outputted the films for people. and I saw the for sale sign, and I was like, oh wow. And they had been bought by Sony, so for them they didn't care because although they sold it at a really cheap price, they were looking for tax write off. So it was just like a unique time.
Yeah.
In Providence, I caught it at a a valley in pricing,
Right.
and then went over the top on the build out. Kind of really first class kind of stuff. And by doing that for everything, but like I did some budget mastering, a lot of local bands couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So we ended up kind of shopping internationally, and that kind of like there were a lot of local bands that still work there, but for the most part, it changed the dynamic. I thought it was going to be like Fort Apache maybe in Boston. Or Q Division or something like
one of the more upscale studios in the region.
Yeah, and people with budgets basically, and because I really thought Providence was going to be like the next. I've always thought that, like, just held it in high regard, but didn't realize that it's a small community. There's only 180,000 people in Providence,
right?
And that things were really budget. Plus, there was at that time, I started before the noise scene here.
Right.
And the noise scene, although I love noise recorded really high fidelity, like I like my noise. I don't want more noise on top of my noise. But there was a lot of people just 4-tracking it, and the need for fidelity wasn't really there, or the budget. So I kind of moved away from the local music scene and promoting it, and just went into keeping the business alive.
Right. So reaching out to like more regional and national acts, and you got some of them.
Yeah,
you got a pretty good roster of like.
Well, you work
artists.
with anyone. I mean, when you're a recording studio, it's not like that was the thing. Was that I was really passionate about music, and you work with bands that you love. You work with bands that you can't stand. We work with Joey McIntyre from New Kids on the Block.
Yeah, I saw that.
Work with Stryper. Work with who is the piano player lady with the red hair?
Tori Amos?
Yeah, Tori Amos.
Oh, really?
She did a live thing with BRU there.
Oh, okay.
And the Boss Tones came in, and a bunch of different things. And bands who toured would stay there.
Oh, yeah. Because it actually had like a housing unit too, right? Like
it was like a bed and breakfast type of thing. The music business is wild, and recording is wild. We had a guy show up, a rap act from, was it Ohio? But and the producer showed up with just a suitcase full of money, and that guy's name was Jahari. He was a really nice guy.
Yeah.
But he smoked just an amazing amount of weed.
Yeah.
You run into all kinds of crazy situations. Some of the most fun was being able to have bands that I liked that were touring come back and stay. Because sometimes we'd go downstairs and play music. And one of my favorites was Nashville Pussy, who I knew Cory, the bass player, through friends. She was dating a friend of mine, but what is it, Ryder? Yeah, Ryder, who was dating one of the other guys in the band. She signed her panties and like put it up on the wall as her like little calling card. And I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
But yeah, the Sound Station 7 was a lot of fun, and we had a lot of pretty legendary Christmas party. And
I've heard about the Christmas parties. I don't think I've been to one.
I think the first one, Combustible Edison, played, and I do have a recording of that somewhere.
Oh, cool.
All the master tapes and stuff are over at Machines with Magnets.
Oh, yeah? Because they bought your tape machine when the studio closed, right?
There's like a lineage of recording in Rhode Island, at least the way that I see it, that I don't know, a lot of people kind of know it. Normandy Sound was in Warren, and they really were a huge recording studio. Yeah. And they were at a recording studio in the time before digital, where you kind of had to go to a big studio to get a professional sound. You didn't have a choice, really.
Right.
And they initially made their money on New Kids on the Block.
Oh, okay.
This is in Little Warren, Rhode Island, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And with an absolute madman by the name of Phil Green at the helm. And they had other they had another producer there. I forget his name, but they ended up doing a lot of hardcore from actually New York City, and they did a. We were talking about Mission of Burma. Yeah, they did a Mission of Burma, I think, album there. Okay. The first Breeders thing was like there's a lot of interesting indie stuff, but also the most over the top kind of commercial, like New Kids and Marky Mark and stuff was all done there. Wow. That's how I actually ended up working with Johnny McIntyre from New Kids at Soundstation.
He remembered you from then?
No, what happened was when Normandy went out of business, we had built a really good like waterproof, I don't know, waterproof, but like a tape vault essentially for all the analog tape that we had in the basement. And he needed to get rid of everything at Normandy because it was done. So we got a lot of crazy master tapes, and we had all the Marky Mark stuff, and we had all the New Kids on the Block's master tapes in the basement. And he came one day, and I think he was totally freaked out initially because that neighborhood is very, especially at the time, was very sketchy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And he picked him up, and then we just like struck up conversation, and I was always pitching the studio, and he actually rented it to rehearse a gospel choir for the 92.3 Pro FM Christmas party at the Westin Hotel with Cher and a bunch of other people. And I give him credit because Cher and everyone else, most of them did a lip sync kind of thing. Yeah. He brought a full on, there's some pretty good gospel groups in Providence. Yeah. And he had a full on gospel thing, and he did his little Christmas show. Wow. But they rehearsed it all in the studio.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So back to the time with Machines with the Magnets. Normandy Sound was around, and really, they had an SSL. They had really tricked out equipment, and Phil and the people there really knew about all the kind of analog stuff and tricks of the trade that I was just learning, and also some of it was having a revival again. Like Neumann microphones, people were looking for those. They hadn't reissued a lot of that stuff, and they had all that stuff, and you could go and talk to them and geek out. And then when they closed down, I got a few things from them. Gear-wise, but it was mainly Rob Pemberton. I don't know. The engineer there came and was the chief engineer and also tech. Oh, he could rewire the board, build a microphone from scratch. He was a true kind of technician, and I did not have that skill. And if you're going to have a pro studio, you really need an in-house tech. Yeah. So Rob and I, a couple other people, did Soundstation 7, and then at the time, this really goes way back. So Keith Souza had a studio in his basement in Tiverton, and then he moved that studio, and we kept in contact, and he moved it to East Providence.
I remember that place.
Yep.
I've been there.
That was really cool. Yeah. And we would go over there and kind of exchange things, and he was dating someone whose father was working on the job site of Soundstation 7 when we were building it, and he would come over, and there's just a lot of exchange there, And I think that I don't think it was jealousy at all. It was just like he was aware that he could go over there and talk about and see stuff. We were working with a budget for equipment and stuff that was way above what he was working with at the time. Oh, okay. So.
A little envious there, or kind of curious, like how.
I don't think it was envious at all. I think it was
curiosity. Just, because he obviously wanted to build a studio. He did already build one in East Providence, which I don't know how much he built, but he definitely worked on it. There was definitely
it collegial? Is that the right word?
Yeah,
it was I
think so.
It was like a. People if you work in the same thing, you go out for drinks afterwards and you bullshit about the bands. Right. It was that kind of thing. And when we went under. And he's also observing and learning, I think. It was a learning process of watching the studio being built, because I'd hired a really good acoustical engineer from New York City. Right. And so our control room was pretty out there.
Yeah, I saw the article that was in Mix Magazine.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and
with
the
Fran
photos.
Manzella.
There's a couple of photos in there, not too many, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
yeah, it looked pretty impressive.
So when we shut down, they came and some of the stuff, like for instance, the wood floors and stuff, and some of the wood, they salvaged it all. I mean, he's Portuguese. It's like him and Seth were just like,
Pulling up floorboards, literally.
Yeah, actually, my first nickname, and man, Seth has become such a great engineer, but he was like he was young. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe 18 or something when I first met him.
Okay.
And I refused to learn his name. We just called him Nail Boy because every time I came in there, he was just in the studio removing nails, just
Yeah.
like 10,000 nails he probably removed.
Jeez.
We had a modified 2-inch 8-track. It was
Yeah.
kind of rare. It was a 2-inch 16 or 8-track,
Okay.
and so they have that machine over there.
Yeah. That was the biggest one that I had heard about.
Yeah,
Because I had heard about the Sound Station 7 closing, and at the time, I mean, I didn't really have any connection to you or the studio or machines with magnets for that
Yeah.
matter either at that time. But yeah, that was the biggest piece I remember hearing. Is just like, oh, machines with mag got the 2-inch track, the 2-inch tape machine from Sound Station 7.
yeah. There was two. We had a Studer,
Okay.
and the Studer was more of a newer one.
Yeah.
And it had a 24 and a 16 head stack. We had a lot of toys. It was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, you guys kind of covered everything too, because not only were you able to record bands there, but you also did a lot of like mastering projects, I believe. Too,
Well,
right?
I had back then. I mean, now mastering is really easy, but there were some tools that came out that made it pretty easy. So, and I wanted to help local bands and things. So, like Dan St. Jake's, a lot of stuff I worked with him, where he'd come with his 4-track and we'd mix down through the board, and then I'd master it.
Yeah.
And Drop Dead and a ton of stuff I did like that. Just
Okay.
kind of helping people mastering for $35 an hour.
Right. Because that's a huge like help to sound for a recording, even if it's from like 4-track, like very
Oh, yeah.
minimal DIY type of recording gear, right? Like a typical home studio recording then was like
You'd be surprised. Even some of the major label stuff that's recorded with great producers and engineers.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen what it was before it was mastered and after, you might be surprised. I mean,
Yeah.
most things. Also, everyone was putting out CDs. This is like
early to mid 90s.
yeah. So people are putting out CDs. So they needed someone to put the red track audio and sequence them and all that kind of stuff. They needed help with. So
Yeah.
I did a fair amount of that.
Huh.
And we'd also I was in a couple bands and things, and we'd do some stuff for fun sometimes, and
Yeah.
it was pretty amazing resource to have as far as the level of equipment we had and stuff
Yeah.
we could do there.
So the one band that comes to mind that I just have to mention because I'm personally just a huge fan, and I never have mentioned them on the show actually, was Plymouth Rock.
Okay.
So how did that work out? Because their first full length record, they recorded there, right?
I believe so. I don't know their discography really well, but
Yeah.
I was a huge fan.
Well, because I know that Jed gave me like a bunch of like demos that they had done before that came out.
Yeah.
But I remember that record especially, and it was an amazing sounding record. I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's
love
really
that
good.
record.
That was Tom Buckland. So Tom Buckland, do you know Tom?
No, I don't.
So he was in Neutral Nation, would be like if you want to go way back, and bass player, but also he was like excellent live sound guy, but also great in the studio.
Yeah.
And he was like one of the best kind of producer engineers around town. He floated at different studios, and he also was the director of the set design at Trinity.
Oh, okay.
At the time. So,
Yeah.
but he would do sound for a lot of people. Everyone loved Tom, and Tom worked with Plymouth Rock. He ended up going and working on also the Hydrogen Terrors, the last record they did. That was him, and he had a studio in a building that is kind of where the 903 apart, like that, whatever that condos are by the mall.
Yeah.
There was a mill there, and
Oh, right.
he had I think it was called Mill Rat Studios.
Millrat. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds right. Okay.
And so Tom did a fair, You couldn't just go to a sound station unless there was some kind of budget.
Right.
So he didn't do a whole lot of work there, but there's a couple select projects that he did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was a great one that I know of offhand that I can think of. That was amazing.
I think he worked with oh man, there's a lot of stuff that came through there, but he worked with Mark Cutler there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You'd have to ask him exactly what he did there, but he did. Oh, he did a lot of stuff, and Rob engineered it. He did a lot of also production work with the Royal Crowns.
Oh, for the first or the second record?
It was the second one, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I looked up. I tried to look up some information on Sound Station 7, and the only thing I could really find was Discogs, and it kind of had a limited number. Like it called it Sound Station 7 Records. First of all, secondly, it was like a pretty good list of bands that I think releases that had kind of come out of there, whether they had been mastered there or recorded there.
Yeah.
But I think there was some things missing too, like the Joey McIntyre thing wasn't on there.
There's probably a ton of stuff that was missing.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, there's some crazy stories.
Yeah, but so very limited information on Sound Station 7 online, at least for me to kind of like research on, because unfortunately I was never there. Like I said, I think I was only in there once for like maybe a party or something. I don't even really remember. But also what was difficult about this tonight was the record that you chose, which was the Wailing.
I'm glad
Ultimate.
you're coming back to the record, because Sound Station 7 and the Bitter Pill to Swallow, the compilation that I did, and then Repopulation Program, the one that
Load Records.
I recorded and Load put out.
Yeah.
It ties back to this record in some ways, because so the album that I picked was the Wailing Ultimate.
Yeah, which is a compilation record.
Put out on Homestead Records
Yep.
in 1987. And I remember seeing the advertisements for it in a magazine on an airplane. I can really remember that. I'm like, I got to get that.
On an airplane.
And I was reading a magazine on an airplane, and I was like, I can remember it just like it was yesterday, and being like, wow, look at that artwork, look at all these kind of cool bands. I need to get this. And at that time, you got to remember it's 87, so no cell phones, no internet, no anything. The way things spread was through fanzines, through word of mouth, hanging out. The record store was a huge deal, to go to the record store and find things. Maybe a little bit on TV, but I mean, 120 minutes.
Maybe. Yeah.
Like they had IRS is the Cutting Edge. I mean, you could find some stuff. Night Flight, maybe.
Yeah.
A few things, but you had to really dig back then, right? And it wasn't easy. You couldn't just Google something and it would come up. And I feel like my generation, I was born in 70. So like in the 80s, a lot of people were like music historians or librarians. Like you had to really commit a lot of time to research bands.
Yeah.
And I was doing two things. I was going back in time like a lot of people were. And, so discovering Sabbath and the Nuggets compilations. Yeah. All this stuff from the 60s and 70s that was amazing. And that was kind of feeding my interest. But I was also trying to figure out what the contemporaries were doing. Yeah. And compilations were kind of a good way to find out about things. The other major compilation that was a big deal for me before the Wailing Ultimate was Athens, Georgia, Inside Out. And that's also a documentary. Okay. Which is definitely, for everyone out there, you got to see Athens, Georgia, Inside Out. And it had a lot of great bands on it, but it really cemented the idea of a scene. Yeah. And how Minneapolis had a scene. And obviously DC had a scene. Yeah. West Coast had a scene. I guess LA was very different than San Francisco, Seattle, like on and on and on. There's all these different scenes, and I really became interested in how those form, learning about them, collecting the music. Yeah. I lived for a while in the late 80s in Raleigh, North Carolina. Oh, yeah? And so Merge and Polvo and Erectus Monotone and Superchunk and all that stuff was just kind of forming then. Yeah. And I just liked being around music, like communities with art. And that could be visual art but music to me, especially as a teenager, was really exciting.
Yeah. Well, it was a really cool time for you. Obviously, you were a teenager in the mid to late 80s?
Yeah, I was born in 70, so from like 83 to the end, I was there was a lot of really cool stuff going on, but it was also hard to find. Especially I was in living in Florida, living in places that were kind of really cultural backwaters.
Yeah.
So I lived in when I was living in the Midwest, that was a college town. So college towns are usually good for
where
for
in the
music.
Midwest?
DeKalb, Illinois was where I was born.
Okay.
But I had lived in a lot of places where it wasn't really easy to find until I got into high school. I was we had Princeton Record Exchange and then Princeton's radio station.
Yeah.
That's where that just blew my mind.
Really?
Yeah, because being like 16 years old and having at midnight the Mentors come on. Do you know the band The Mentors?
No.
Very kind of raunchy band, or I don't know, all kinds of weird stuff. But I had a definite craving for all this kind of music, but it was like, how do you find it? So you had to go out and search. You had to go to record stores and things like that. Right. And when the Wailing Ultimate came out, when you got a compilation, you could go and then from every band try to find out the scene. Well, where did they come from? Right. So, like, the first track's Dinosaur. Yeah. And that was before Dinosaur Jr. was Dinosaur Jr. They got sued, I think, from a British band called Dinosaur.
Which is why they changed the name.
To Dinosaur Jr. Yeah. Yeah, but at that point, that song Repulsion...
would you like to play that track? Just kind of get a little feel for it?
Play a little bit, sure.
So this was released in 87.
So this was in 87. I got it immediately. It was the summer of 87. This is between junior and senior year in high school. I'm putting this, and so for me, this is like, I don't know if the term indie rock had formed at that, like it was just forming around this time. Yeah. Like for me, it was punk, obviously new wave, alternative, things like that. But indie rock hadn't really become
a term yet. Yeah.
And
this was like college radio's music too. Like so, college radio had a huge influence on music, the music scene, and actual like genre forming as well. Because like I feel like all of these bands around this era, through college radio, kind of got that alternative tag, or what later on became grunge or indie. Yep. So all of it basically kind of came from college radio, right?
Pretty much. I mean, in this case, I can't tell you the history of Homestead Records that well, or Dutch East Trading Company.
There's not much history about that either. That was the other enigma of tonight.
That sucks because, basically, I'm pretty sure it was Gerard Causeway, and that I don't know. I'm gonna fuck this up, but it becomes Matador, which a lot of people
Dutch East Trading.
No, Homestead like somehow becomes Matador, I think.
Oh, okay.
But essentially, it's New York City, right? But
Long Island.
New York City being a nexus of like where, like with radio stations and culture and just like bands playing and like where you're gonna break. You're gonna break out of New York. So there was a lot of fans there and crazy stuff going on. So, but if you look at the bands on the Wailing Ultimate. What they're doing is what I was trying to do on my own, which was like survey America, right, and see all what's going on in the underground, right? Yeah. So Dinosaur was right up here. They're in
Boston.
Well, no, they were no. Dinosaur is not. I don't consider them. That's funny because we were earlier talking about how when bands make it around here, they just automatically come from Boston. Right. They're Northampton.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right. So, and...
you glom onto, like, the nearest major city.
Yeah.
And for
music, Northampton,
Boston,
I think, is its own scene. And what was going on there was... I had friends that had lived there one summer and went out there. It's a funky...
Really?
Yeah. Okay. It's like... I don't know. It's college town. There's hippies, but there's also... it's like our Humboldt County in some ways too. I think like it's but East Coast, so miserable instead of like your typical California, or what I think of as stereotypical kind of positivity.
Yeah.
Or like so this song,
Volcano Suns. Yeah.
Yeah, Volcano Suns. So on this record is John Williams. And John Williams, this is later Volcano Suns.
Oh, okay.
He became a good friend of mine, and who I learned a lot of recording from.
Oh, okay.
So he ties into Sound Station 7. He did a fair amount of work there. He did Juliana Hatfield's record there.
Oh, okay.
But he had a recording studio in Vermont that was awesome.
Yeah.
In this cabin, and tons of crazy stuff went on at that studio. But the Hydrogen Terrace, no, it was actually Von Ryan's Express. Their single for Sub Pop was done there. And
at James's studio?
At John Williams. Studio up in Vermont.
Okay.
And what's really sad about that is that at that point, it was the whole band and just everyone was really into Public Enemy at the time, and Nick Atosha was doing all this like tape stuff.
Yeah.
That ends up coming in the Hydrogen Terrors later, like
on the second.
It bubbles
right.
up, but they were doing stuff that really sounded like a weird, I don't know how to describe it, like a weird punk rock Public Enemy, and the stuff that Sub Pop released wasn't that, but that tape got lost. And so there might be a couple like cassettes out there, but it never got released.
Yeah.
So
that sucks.
Oh yeah, only half of the John Williams stuff ever saw the light of day. Huh. But he was in this band, and so that's an interesting. Little.
Yeah, I'm finding a lot of like really weird little connections between you and all of the things that like some of the people I've interviewed, like Peter Prescott from Mini Beast now.
Yeah.
Was obviously in this band Volcano Suns.
Yep.
Another thing I think is funny is that, so to go back a little bit to what you were saying about trying to find a scene and trying to nourish one, kind of.
Yep.
Did you kind of think of Providence as that? Like, did you see Providence as
seeing
all these bands and was just like, this can be an amazing scene? And
definitely. That's what I thought. I had been around other scenes, and I had kind of toured the country, and I was like, what's happening in Providence is as good or better than anywhere in America. And Ben thought so as well. I think Ben's taste and stuff went more not so Providence-centric. It went to a style of music, know?
Yeah.
And he really explored noise and some really challenging stuff.
Yeah.
But I think when we started, I'm trying to think of some of the fanzines that were out there. We were sending out profiles of Providence. We were promoting Providence.
Yeah.
And there was like a Providence pride, definitely. I felt it. And I would always talk it up.
Now, you say that this is 87-ish?
No. This is much later.
This is like pre-Sound Station 7.
This is 90s, pre-Sound Station 7.
But like the early 90s. Okay. Because, I'm actually fairly young. In the early 90s, I was like pre-teen.
Okay.
So I missed all that stuff in the 80s for sure. I like the Providence scene, the music scene didn't
I moved here in 89.
Okay.
So I missed most of the 80s too. I caught some of the tail end of it.
Yeah.
When I moved here, there was the old living room, just like where. Do you remember? Was it the Spaghetti Warehouse? I don't know, but it was right by the mall. There was a building with a huge circular window.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the living room. Saw some amazing shows when I first moved here. I saw Soundgarden and the Screaming Trees.
Wow.
I saw that was a really good show. That Loud Love had just come out, and like for us, I think the idea of rocking and kind of grunge, or a lot of people were listening to Black Sabbath. Things were getting heavy, and they clearly out there had tapped into something, and they just blew the roof off the house. And Jane's Addiction had some really good shows.
Oh really? At the living room?
Oh yeah. I mean, there was so many good shows. Actually, one of the best. I saw Throwing Muses there a bunch.
Yeah.
And I always have loved them.
Well, the living room was like a nationally renowned place to stop.
Well, at that point, you got to realize a lot of those, like, like Jane's Addiction, like Perry Farrell ends up doing Lollapalooza, and like,
Right.
this is all pre-Nirvana, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
This is before those bands became massive stars.
Yeah. So it's still underground. Still people kind of going to the record store and being
still
like,
on a DIY kind of circuit.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean,
so
sound stations.
on the compilation tip, there was this was way after Wailing Ultimate, but Sub Pop came up with the Sub Pop 200.
Yeah.
Which was like, I always bought the compilations because I'd start there. If I found a band that I liked, I'd then go buy their album.
Right.
But and that was definitely documenting the Pacific Northwest scene.
Yeah.
So here in Providence, I was when I did the Bitter Pill to Swallow compilation record, I was trying to document Providence in the same kind of way that I was seeing Athens, Georgia, Inside Out, the Wailing Ultimate. Although Wailing Ultimate's not a particular town, I just liked how people would kind of curate a compilation album to kind of make a statement of some sort.
Yeah.
In this case, it was just they were. Well, Homestead was probably getting a lot of demo tapes, so they were at the stage where people were sending them a lot of music, but they were obviously wicked connected, and I mean Homestead and Dutchie's Trading Company put out a ton of awesome music.
They did. You said Homestead put out, and Dutchie's as well.
Trading Company, they were the distributor, and when we first started doing the record label stuff, they were definitely one of the distributors that were. That would take on it, indie stuff. Yeah.
I mean, they had a pretty amazing roster. I mean, obviously, so Homestead Records was active from 83 until 96.
Okay.
So in that time, I mean, there's all this list of bands, which is, to name the biggest ones, is like you got Big Black, you have Dinosaur Jr., Gigi Allen, unfortunately, Green River, Naked Ray Gun, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, so Sonic Youth, Soul Junk is weird. That's a weird one. They're kind of like a religious band, weren't they? Weren't they like Christian rock?
I don't know that one.
I had a single of theirs recently, and I thought it was so strange. But a number of like amazing like bands that went on to have pretty successful independent careers, but.
Yeah, so something like the Wailing Ultimate compilation, to me, was one of those markers of like, you can do it. Like, like they were obviously a little more sophisticated, and they were at the level, and they were in New York, which I think was helpful.
Right.
People were sending them stuff, but the idea that you don't need to just listen to what's on the radio. You can DIY was back in when I was 17, 16. And got this. That was really cemented in my mind that just put it like anyone can put it out.
Yeah, but so even before you started a record label and before you founded the studio, this was your idea all along, was to try to not only gather these musicians and these bands to kind of help like create a scene, but also to promote the scene.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely. When I was younger, and I don't drink anymore, but when I was a drinker and going out, I was the guy in the front row, like freaking out, dancing, and like I was a huge, fan and champion of these bands, and I would hang out at practice spaces. I was in a few bands, but nothing ever too serious.
Yeah.
I loved being a part of it, and I love the idea that you could. Do it yourself. You could record, you could make posters, all that kind of stuff was really, really appealing to me. And it came from compilations like this, and also the Athens, Georgia Inside Out documentary was a big deal for me.
Yeah.
And being really young, like 16, and going down to the Cat's Cradle in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and seeing the Flat Duo Jets, seeing Dexter play. That was another kind of, like, there was no one in there. There was like 10 people in there, but it was so raw and so heartfelt, the music. It just really it was very authentic to me.
Yeah.
So the idea that music doesn't have to be this kind of passive thing, like where you watch it on MTV, you go to like the Dunkin' Donuts Center to see, Metallica,
Right.
which I did, which was awesome. But that's one type of thing.
Right.
But the idea that we could leave right now and be like, oh, we got to go,
Right.
Because back then, you look at show flyers from a certain point, like 5 nights a week, there was crazy bands,
Yeah.
playing. I mean, live music was a big deal. I don't know what killed that. I mean, everyone's like, oh, the internet killed it, but
Well,
maybe.
that was actually what I was thinking next was do you feel like the current music scene in Providence is stifled compared to the early 90s?
I don't feel qualified to really speak. I mean, I know a little bit about it just from,
You're just not as in touch
Facebook
anymore.
and
Yeah.
and seeing things and going out to a few shows. I also really think my generation continued on with music longer than a lot of other generations did. In other words,
Yeah.
like once you hit 30 and started having kids, you weren't going to the record store anymore. Whereas a
True.
lot of people in my generation have continued to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's the risk, but what happens in that situation, in my opinion, is that rock and roll is really kind of for young people.
Yeah, I
And
suppose so.
my being on leukemia meds, totally exhausted, not drinking, and going to a show, and maybe not getting close because I don't want my ears to be like destroyed or whatever.
Right.
That makes me more of I'm not an active participant of the scene. I'm more of an outside observer.
Yeah.
And when you're young, or at least I'll speak for myself. When I was young and had all that crazy hormones and that's a time where music was life.
Right.
Like I saw and judged people through what bands you were into was a huge thing to me. That
Right.
Like,
of course. You need some
there's a lot
common
of talk
ground.
about identity politics now and and things with like gender and stuff. For me back then, it wasn't like all that was blind. It was like, oh, you like SST records. You must be okay.
Right.
You're in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You must be a person that I can deal
Yeah, I
with
can
and,
relate
like,
to you.
relate
You
to.
must be okay.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal for me. And you get older, and you just. I still love music, but it's not like it was then. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember
have
just
to
going
agree
to
with you.
shows and
Yeah.
having my mind blown.
Right.
And on a high from the show
And look
for
forward to
days
having
after.
your mind blown. Yeah. Like now it's just like what do they call that? The bangover?
The bangover?
The old people that they have the next day they have the bangover. It's like
yeah.
if they go out to a rock show and actually participate, it's just like the next day you just feel horrible and achy
Yeah.
from fucking rocking out.
Yeah. I mean, back then, music, well, art, culture, it all was just like a huge stimulant to me.
Yeah. Well, so then let me say this, that maybe I hope, because I feel out of touch as well with the existing music scene in Providence. I mean, like doing the show is good for me to be able to reconnect with it, because I have kind of equally, stepped away for a long time because I had kids. And so I took on that role instead of going and hanging out every night. So I'm kind of getting back into there, getting back into that place and trying to rediscover so who are the bands that people are really excited about now?
I can't speak on it because I'm going to screw it up, but there's a show that's going to happen here next door.
Yeah.
Called Bish Bash.
Yeah.
In March. It's going to be part like art installation, a lot of visual stuff, and but there's going to be some bands playing, and they're going through a list of 50 bands that are local to try to figure out who's going to play and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to throw out names, but I'm being exposed to some of it. It seems interesting. I think as long as you have teenagers and free time and instruments, and hopefully usually like a beer or like a joint or something, and put them in a room, rock is gonna happen. It is, and whether it coalesces and becomes something that they become famous or not, that kind of thing may happen around here. But right now, somewhere in Rhode Island, there's amazing rock being made.
Well,
I'm just way out of touch with it.
right,
you know?
right. Well, so the last time I was here was actually because of a show being hosted here, but it was more of like a very quiet acoustic set by Will Johnson,
Yeah.
who I'm a huge fan of. I love him dearly. I think his music's amazing. I think he's just a really compelling singer. Were you fans of him? Did you know him prior to?
I don't know him at all because
Yeah.
it's all through James Dean, who's
Right.
a tenant of mine. He lives in the unit right
Next door, yeah. But you have this great space here that you can
Yeah.
utilize for that. Like,
Well, I've always liked. I've liked, like right now, this house is in an old auto body shop. I've always liked living in commercial spaces. I like
Yeah.
living in, like, even, I'm going to be 50 soon. I like living like in a nightclub, basically, like, or in an artist community.
it's a hub of activity,
Yeah.
it just draws people in, and you get to kind of like,
And also just like the architecture and like the concrete floor so that you can have
all right,
that kind of stuff. Like, or the scale of it, because
Right.
most like a typical 3-family apartment here, you couldn't have, 100 people over for a
Right.
show. I love, I don't like to, like, I've lived a couple times in like traditional houses. I never feel comfortable. I don't know. I don't know why. I like the idea of being able to be like, let's throw a show or let's,
Right.
do an event. And that goes way back to Soundstation. It goes back to, before that, it was Taekwondo Studios, which was an old ballet
yeah,
studio in downtown Providence.
okay,
And that was really wild. We did some really good recordings there. We did the first Hydrogen Terrors record. John Williams did that there.
yeah,
And a couple other things. And there was a really good show there. The Bitter Pill to Swallow
Yeah.
release party. Had a show there that the guys from Sub Pop were there. And that was who was that? Drop Dead, Six Finger Satellite, Ashley Von Herter and the Haters, Medicine Ball. Was
Jesus,
there.
yeah, it's a pretty stacked bill.
Yeah, there was a couple shows
Yeah.
to celebrate the release of that.
Cool, that's amazing.
So and it goes like basically it's the mill culture in this town, right? Of
Right,
that Fort Thunder became so known for, but now there's a million versions of these. You don't really live in your typical apartment or house.
Yeah.
You live in an industrial or commercial space that serves as a place to have events and cultural stuff, basically.
yeah. No, I love it. I mean, I actually kind of envy this. I would love a place like this for myself, but not terribly conducive for the kids. But
Yeah, if you've got kids and stuff.
yeah, I mean, I would like it, and I think they would like it too. I mean, my son's just all about something that's modern. That's what he calls it. He's just like, oh, that's very modern. I like it. He would like, if he were in here right now, he would be like, wow, this is very
This chair
modern,
is very
JJ.
modern.
I like it. Absolutely. He'd eat this up, man.
As much as I'd say that rock and roll is the purview of the youth, I will say that I have respect for folks that are still doing it, like into their 50s and stuff, and doing it consistently, like Drop Dead, for instance, is
Yeah.
I remember seeing them at the Fast Forwards record show on outside of where the Rocket was, or maybe it was the Babyhead at the time.
Okay.
They had an all-day outdoor show, and Ben from Drop Dead was so aggressive with this microphone that he was pulling out of the PA, and Jay Ryan from Six Finger Satellite had to basically hold the PA in place, but was being kind of
Pulled around.
dragged around, and the Drop Dead's still going.
Yeah.
They're still rocking out. Or Brian Chippendale's been very consistent. Like, he's basically doing the same thing that when he was a year before me at RISD, I think, or maybe 2 years or 1 year. Regardless,
Right around the same time.
he's moving into he's got to be in his 40s now, coming up on 50.
Yeah.
He's consistently had a vision and never was like, oh, I'm an adult now. I need to work at the bank and get a house or whatever. Like he's and there's other people like that. I mean, I'm sure Peter Prescott he's still rocking.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh
so-
my God, that show he's a really amazing performer, and
So-
he's like in his 60s.
So it's possible to keep rocking.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think back to the question of the scene.
Yeah.
I think those really happen with younger people because of the nature of being young.
So there could be a scene happening right now here in Providence that we're not aware of?
I would definitely... No, there definitely is. I think it has changed with the internet, though.
Yeah.
People, like, because back in the day, like, you would just go to the living room because, like, you're either going to watch... well, it was pretty cool. When I first moved here, Fox had just come on, so there was the early Simpsons.
Oh, okay.
So you might... and you'd watch whatever came on after that. What was that show? Love and Marriage.
Married with Children?
Yeah, Married with Children.
Yeah.
That was like a big new thing. Or you could go maybe rent a VHS tape and watch something on a shitty little TV. But for the most part, you went to the went to the club.
Went out to the bar, see a band. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was every night. So that there's way too many different options now.
Yeah.
From stuff with screens, you don't have to leave home.
It's true.
Or even in the scene, all kinds of different places. Back in the day, to me, there was, the clubs, and then there was always like the underground warehouse scene that was coming and going.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I know right over here, the Columbus.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal.
That's a pretty big deal.
It took forever for that guy to fire that movie theater back up.
Yeah.
But what he needed was people, passionate people that were gonna breathe life into it.
Right.
And they,
it's a beautiful space.
Yeah,
I mean, for sure.
But it's really going. I mean, there's a recording studio there, and there's lots of interesting shows, big and small.
Right.
So, there's that going on. I mean, but yeah. So as far as like where the hipsters hanging out tonight, I don't know. I'm just here.
I was hoping that maybe we could get a drink, kind of schmooze.
Yeah.
Get in with some of those young kids these days.
Yeah. No, I'm on the couch a lot.
Yeah. No, me too, man. This is my night out right here.
Yeah.
So to go back a little bit to what you were saying about the industrial space and like liking a place like this to live, it's also conducive to working, right? So do you do any more recording? You don't do any more recording, do you?
I do not do any. I've been threatening to record.
Threatening?
For a long time, but I haven't gotten around to it. I don't have any equipment.
Yeah.
I technically have free recording for life at Machines with Magnets, but I can't do it with any band that would normally pay. Like...
There has to be like some kind of project, thing that's...
So we had talked about doing JJ and the Jets.
Yeah.
With them as kind of the house band. And it was going to be a compilation record.
Yeah.
Of just like garage music and stuff that I like, that obscure stuff.
Huh.
And then the vision was to print it up as a record and drive around the country and just drop it off at Savers and stuff and release it that way, so that it... And not put a date on it, so that it could kind of become like... Hey, wait a second. What's this JJ and the Jets?
Yeah.
It seems kind of timeless.
Yeah.
So that there was that concept.
Wow. Okay.
Never executed. Probably won't be executed.
Okay. Good idea.
But I'm doing more visual art. So painting.
Yep.
Drawing. I do commercial photography. That's not really, more just portraiture and things like that. That was my major at RISD.
Photography.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and next door it was an art gallery. So I showed my art, but other artists and stuff, and show space.
Yeah.
Like a flex space where you could put on anything you want.
Right.
Pop up restaurants. We did all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great space. I mean, I don't know what your plans are as far as like kind of having things kind of keep on coming through here like that. Like if you were kind of interested in the idea of like becoming more of like a venue.
That's shutting down. The Bish Bash show that's coming up.
That'll be the last thing, right?
Yeah, and we might do some shows beforehand just to like dry run it, make sure the sound sounds good and everything. But then I have some tenants moving in. They're going to do a silkscreen studio in the front.
Yeah.
And gallery. They're going to do some things. I don't know what, but they'll just be my tenants.
Yeah.
And I won't have access to that awesome space anymore, but
right. Well, there'll always be something else. I mean,
yeah, I really at this point having the consistent rent is going to be really nice. I mean, having a space that you have to justify having it, to have shows or pop-up restaurant or whatever we came up with ways to make money is really fun, especially at first.
Yeah.
You go into the year 4 or 5, and it can kind of become a bit of a
exhausting.
a bit of a grind.
Yeah. Huh. Well, so but I bring up the space only because I was saying like workspace as well because of your art. Your painting, I saw some of it because it was hanging up here when I was here last.
Yeah.
And the only other experience I had with your art was I follow you on Instagram. So it's John Tabor Jacobson at John Tabor Jacobson, right, on Instagram.
Yeah.
Is that the handle?
Yep. That's my full name. Yep.
So in the digital format, I always thought it kind of looked a little strange. I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know if it was actual digital art or if it was a photograph of your art. But seeing it in person is really interesting because you can actually really grasp the amount of like layering that goes on in it.
Oh yeah. I'm Captain Layer.
Yeah.
Lately, what I've been doing is mainly there for a couple reasons, but one, I want to be able to do art always, just like not necessarily for showing, just for my own personal like well-being.
Yeah.
And so with an iPad, I can do it anywhere. Like no one can, like I don't have to have a studio. I don't have to have. I can do it on an airplane. I can do it sick if I'm in bed. Like,
Yeah.
I actually first got into doing art on my iPhone when I had leukemia because I was in bed for so long. That's the only way I could do stuff.
Yeah.
But then it slowly morphed into the drawing programs that are out now and the painting simulators.
Yeah.
Keep getting better and better and better. So I'm starting right now to move into animation, and then I'm also looking at what's going on with projection and screens like 8K and modular screens so that it takes up a whole wall and really high def.
Okay.
And also augmented reality and VR. I'm not there yet. This is going to be the year that I pick up some of those skills.
Yeah.
But I really want to kind of live in my paintings, you know? Be able to almost like walk around in those environments.
Oh wow. Okay.
And yeah, with any luck, by the end of the year, I'll have some examples of that. I mean, I have.
Cool. So now, would you think that your art primarily is digital these days?
Yeah, almost all digital.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll draw and scan in, and I sample a lot of other artists. If I go to museums.
Yeah.
With my high-end camera, and I'll sample paintings and throw it into my paintings.
Oh.
I do a lot of that.
Huh.
But if you look at this, so that's like a finished drawing that I did recently. But if I go here and do the animation, you can kind of see like the process. So, and process is really important to me. Like,
Yeah.
I went to a really good show in London where.
Would you mind picking up your microphone because I want to make sure they get this?
Yeah, I went to a really good show in England that was with the artist. He's an LA artist. What's his name? Oh, shit. It doesn't really matter, but he was doing a series of paintings that was commenting on a painting is like the final frame of a movie, and that's all you get to see. Whereas, you know, if you're a movie maker, people get to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like a painter, you get to see the final frame.
Right.
And I really identified with that, like all the things that go into, particularly abstraction, at the end, without the references and experience and kind of ideas, it's just like, that's an interesting blob or whatever. And you might pick out a few things or a few references.
Yeah.
But I don't want to have my paintings be like shrouded in mystery. Or some painters are like, I don't want to talk about my paintings. Like, I actually want to make abstraction less kind of alienating and provide context. And one way to do that is through animation or like immersive environments.
Yeah.
Once you can see where it's coming from and some of the ideas that are floating around, I think it takes on more meaning and particularly for other people because they can see the process.
Yeah. That's very cool. I've never really thought of it that way. I've never really been much of an art connoisseur.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like I definitely appreciate some art, and I've been to obviously see some pieces of work in different types of galleries. I mean, I've even been to where's that? Van Gogh's gallery in Amsterdam.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've been, seen a few things. The Louvre in Paris? Is that how you pronounce it? The Louvre?
I've never been there, actually. I've been to the Museum d'Orsay there, which is the Impressionist Museum.
Yeah.
That's a mind blower.
Cool. Well, I'll have to put it on my docket.
I mean, I came here to go to RISD and was a photo major, but also into painting. And my first, my natural instinct is visual art, not audio.
Yeah.
I come at audio as a fan, and I play a couple chords, but I've always been kind of in awe of musicians, actually.
Yeah.
But then I also realized that some people can be in awe of like painters. It's just because it comes naturally,
right.
you know? And really, for me, as I was going along recording, and I stopped for a variety of reasons, but one of it was, like, for me personally, I would have had to become a musician to go any farther, I think, to really understand music on a deeper level.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Therefore, that's why you wouldn't get into production, I guess.
Yeah, and really, I mean, I come at music and the recording studio and all that stuff as just an Uber fan that wanted to, help document some stuff and push things further along. I sang in a couple bands, and that was fun.
Yeah. Which bands were those?
Okay, so when I was in high school, I was in Hatchet Wound. Hatchet Wound, you've not heard of it? We had one show, and we had our practice space was one of those, like rental things with the like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So in Florida, there's no mills to have like a practice space, and there's not really any basements. So we rented one of those storage units, and we'd bring a case of beer, and we had one show, and like it was like some people from the 7-Eleven or Circle K parking lot came, and like a couple girls that we knew probably played to like, I don't know, handful of people.
Yeah.
Locally, I sang in a couple bands just for fun, like that were already established.
Yeah.
There was always like the going to a practice space, and towards the end, just free for alls would take place. Lots of freak jams.
Yeah.
The one band that I played out at in Providence was the Unknowns. Okay, and
no pun intended. I don't know them.
Yeah, the Unknowns, and the logo was the Unknown Comic, the bag on his hat from the Gong Show.
Okay.
And we opened, actually. I have the flyer somewhere. It was a big show. It was it was the Dictators, Lightning Bolt. Forget who else was on that bill, but it was the Moby's Music like anniversary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thing at AC20.
All right.
And we were the first band.
Cool.
And another kind of jokey punk rocky band. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of like my sweet spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been more of a wannabe musician, you know what I mean? Like or a fan.
Right.
I've never really completely delved into that. My forte is more visual art.
Right.
So painting, drawing, photography. That's where I feel like the most comfortable.
Yeah. Cool.
And that definitely spilled over into the music world because I did a lot of posters and like promotion, CD covers.
Oh yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh okay. So then, how did you get into the studio? Because you were going to RISD, you were studying photography. You're obviously a music fan, but you didn't really have any experience doing audio engineering.
So
right?
yeah. So what happened was there definitely had a strong DIY kind of thing coming from, going to record stores, listening, buying fanzines, buying compilations like this that clearly were people just saying, I'm not going to wait till be signed and go to some big studio in Nashville or New York. I'm just going to do it.
Right.
So locally, who was the band? It might have been Boss Fuel. I had heard a recording, and live they sounded so mighty.
Yeah.
And this recording was like, it didn't capture them, in my opinion. So I was like, you know what? We've got to be able to do this, more justice.
Yeah.
So I was working a little bit at the time with a guy who had a lot of skills, Toby Fitch. He was a recording engineer. He did a lot of stuff. and also on soundtracks. Very accomplished guy. And he was doing it on, he was working, I think, with Small Factory some, if you remember them.
A little bit.
And Toby was really talented. And so he recommended that I get a Fostex R8, which is a 1/4-inch 8-track machine.
Okay.
And I got a Mackie board. And from that, we did the repopulation program and just tons and tons of recordings. For a while, the recording studio was set up at 4 Thunder.
Yeah. With that setup, just the Fostex and Mackie board. How big was the board? Like 12 channels? 8 channels?
Fairly small board, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, it was an 8 bus.
Okay.
So it might have been a little more, but just very, very kind of rudimentary setup. Just captured the bands, authentically, just like live in a room kind of thing. A little bit of overdubs, and then we'd have it mastered, and that went well for a while. But like any engineer kind of thing, once you get the bug, and you realize, oh well, if we had this, it could lead to this, and so the acquisition of the building was really key. The old firehouse. Yeah. So once we had that, it went kind of a little bit bananas, and that's actually where I pull away a little bit from the scene and my concerns about the scene and promoting the scene, because I had to put all my focus into that studio.
Yeah.
And my vision of like kind of forming the studio and then having Providence kind of like jump off into the world through the studio didn't happen the way I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
So that for me was a point where I still really involved with music and local music, but my relationship changed to it because I basically priced myself out of a lot of local
bands.
stuff.
Yeah.
So,
well, some people still got the opportunity to work there.
Definitely, yeah.
I mean,
but part of it was also just it's that DIY thing of wanting anyone can do it, but also then wanting quality.
Right.
So I didn't want to ever say no to any band that I liked, but
right.
It wasn't about that. Like I recorded a lot of bands where when I'm recording them, I'm like, this sucks, but you can't say anything. I wanted to. I maybe naively thought that a recording studio would just be bands that you liked, and you'd get to record things that you were into. But owning a recording studio means you have to deal with all kinds of crazy wingnuts.
Right.
Anyway, so you dealt with all kinds of wacky people. I mean, I got in a little bit of trouble because with the major label stuff, at least Rob Pemberton was engineering a lot.
Yeah.
So I became kind of the de facto cruise director. Like I was the entertainer, and I don't go into details, but bands usually when they want to go out and see a town, they're not going to the Children's Museum.
Right.
They're looking for trouble. So I was kind of
so you were their guide to trouble.
Yeah, I was their guide to trouble, which eventually led to my own troubles. But
yeah.
That all kind of that ended. It was all like a bunch of stuff together in my drinking. I ended up getting sober around 2003.
Yeah,
and that whole phase of my life it was all enmeshed together because, as you know, the rock and roll lifestyle is very permissive of people who like to imbibe.
Yeah, scruples maybe a little lax on the scruples.
Yeah, and just working insane hours.
It's true.
And
yeah.
I mean, we didn't. We were. You know what? We were pretty professional, to be honest with you, because I realized early on that drinking, like certainly as an engineer, I'd never do it during.
Yeah.
And even for the bands, like I think with bands, like a drummer particularly, alcohol in the studios, I've seen it a million times. It's a nightmare. But that being said, it'd be really good, like if you've gotten a bunch of takes of a song with a drummer.
Yeah.
and give him just one beer or her, one beer, and then go do a take. Sometimes the one beer thing
Loosens you up just enough.
There's a little magic there.
Yeah.
But every beer after it just
gets progressively worse.
And even worse, thank God we weren't of this era, but cocaine in the studio. Because, well, it just makes people insane. It also takes their judgment. Like, this is the greatest thing ever.
Right.
Like,
yeah, inflates the ego.
yeah, and so luckily we didn't have like people blowing lines off the console like you hear about in the 80s and in the 70s. But that being said, certainly upstairs, like when the bands would move in for a month, yeah, it was like
Jesus.
Yeah, you have 5 people living in confined space under pretty stressful conditions. You're trying to make a record. There's gonna be some wackiness.
Yeah, I bet.
I once actually stopped a couple of crazy things. There's a lot of fighting and ball busting, especially with guys.
Oh, yeah.
In the studio, and there was a guy trying to punch in a bass line, and people would get crazy with punching in. I would punch in, but like I wouldn't punch in a note.
Yeah.
It's just hard to do. It's stressful for the tape operator or the even digital.
Yeah.
This guy was trying to do it, and it just kept missing it. And he went to take his bass head, like they were looking at the speakers, and weren't looking at him so much, but making fun of him. And he was gonna come down and just take the headstock and just smash him right in the head.
Oh my God.
And I had to like stop it.
Oh man.
Yeah, and living in that environment because for part of that, I lived there too, in amongst it. Just became overwhelming.
Yeah, I guess I can imagine. I can kind of assume what kind of debauchery may have ensued.
Yes.
So I don't know. So that was the record that we listened to, minus I think maybe 2 tracks.
Okay.
Because this fucking record, man. I looked it up. It's not anywhere to be found as far as like information on it. Like any good information was really tough to come by. I
bet you if you ask a lot of people, certainly around my age or whatever, like music fans when it came out, a lot of people will remember this record.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that they will. I mean, like the lineup as it is, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun to listen to. But the hard part was trying to find it to listen to it.
There was what's the band from is it Kansas City? The Squirrel Bait, I think is on there, right?
Yep, Squirrel Bait's one. Yep.
That was a bit. I got them, and then you open that door, and I'm gonna screw this up, but there's a whole bunch of bands because Slit and stuff comes from out of that, and a bunch of other. Yeah. Not that I was a Slint fan, but
oh really?
Like Squirrel Bait was the precursor to a whole bunch of music that became big. It's like a lot of these bands. This is at the infancy of bands that either became big or had a lot of influence. Like obviously, Big Black. Albini goes on to do all kinds of engineering, obviously, but also their band is influential. And Dinosaur and who else is on there?
The notable ones, Volcano Suns. They're not, I don't know if they
weren't huge, but they were mainly known as the band after Mission in Burma.
Yes. Yep. I mean, and then Peter went on to do some great things as well. Still,
let me pull it up, see if I have it. The list.
Breaking Circuit. I don't know a lot of these bands. Salem 66, Death of Samantha.
They were a Massachusetts band. That's a great song.
The Reactions.
That was a record that because of that compilation, I went out and bought their record. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I think you might know better than me as far as this like.
Let me take off my
where
glasses
these
here.
bands went to, because like looking at this list now, I'm like, okay, the ones that really stick out are Dinosaur, Big Black, and Naked Ray Gun to a degree.
Yeah, Naked Ray Gun. I got their. They blew my mind.
Really?
Well, yeah, and a lot of really good. They have a lot of good albums. They had the song Rap Patrol and stuff. But they also, the guy, I think the singer guy, went on to form the Digits, which was another, hey, what are you doing?
Your cat was licking your glasses.
Yeah, the band The Digits, which I saw at Club Babyhead. They were really good.
Okay.
Chicago band.
Yeah.
let's see.
Not big digits, the digits.
The Digits, yeah, they were
Digits.
awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of these bands, I kind of, I don't know like enough to really speak much on them, but suffice it to say, I went and researched everyone, and then anything on Homestead, and it became like clear that there was a nexus of part of the scene emanating from New York, kind of basically, right?
Right.
And I'm pretty sure the big guy there was Gerald Causley. So,
As far as the owner was concerned?
yeah, and then that became Matador, right? I think that's how it goes.
I guess it did, but like
I
I said,
don't know. I'm not that big of a
Gerard Causley, yeah.
yeah. He's a super influential guy in indie music for sure. But
I remember seeing this. Like I just looked it up, and Wikipedia was basically the only information I could find on it. And I do remember seeing like a link to Matador at the bottom, but I didn't know why.
Okay.
I didn't say why.
yeah,
But that makes sense then.
maybe they own the rights to all this. I don't know.
Yeah, and that would make sense that Peter had connections to Matador when Burma got back together, and
Yeah.
Matador offered to put their records out
Yep.
if they wanted to record new studio records. So, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of funny how connected this realm gets. You
Yeah,
start
there's
kinda-
definitely and it's connected from that era in a pre-internet way.
Right.
So either very kind of distant through like a fanzine or one-on-one. Like it was really a time where you could the band was playing, they could be staying, Dinosaur was going to stay at your house, if
right.
you wanted them to.
Yeah.
And so there was as I remember it, and again, this could just be because I was younger, but I have a feeling it's not because of that. There was a lot more face-to-face. There was a lot more personal interaction and group experience.
Yeah.
We have group experience now, but it's mediated through a screen, so I know a ton of people and things on Instagram, but it's only through Instagram.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that person, I'm only knowing what they're projecting through, like advertising about themselves or whatever, which is a totally different experience than,
Yeah.
hey, let's go down to the living room and see who's hanging out. And then you don't even end up in the club because there's like something cool going on in the parking lot,
Right.
Yeah,
man. Hey, so one last question. How do you? So what's the next big step? You just going to focus on the art now, the visual art, and try to like do something like what's the aspiration at this point? For the art?
Good questions. So I was an artist in residence at the Avenue Concept for a while.
What's that?
They promote public art, but also graffiti as well. Graffiti art and just kind of street art.
Okay.
And I had, I don't know, here, hold this for a second. There's like a little,
2 mics.
oops.
Kitty, you want that?
Here's a magazine they put out recently. And this is like part of one of my paintings. And this was, like 10 years of graffiti. So I took down all this graffiti from the wall because it was peeling off. And
Yeah.
we prepped the walls basically so that other graffiti artists could come.
Okay.
And I took this all into my studio and I made pretty giant paintings from it.
Okay.
So anyway, and I'm no longer doing this work, but I'm going back there to be artist in residence and kind of work at the Pape Bar again.
Oh, okay.
And in that process, I want to get into kind of public art, but with projections.
Yeah.
Like my big thing now is the problem is that some of that stuff's pretty expensive, so I need to figure out how to get access to it. But screens, projections, VR, AR,
Right.
like I was talking about earlier. I'm definitely interested in trying to learn and take my current iPad drawings and put it in those worlds. I also have
May I look at that?
yeah, sure. I also have kind of a side project in these drawings of music that I've done, and so I have some songs, some beats and stuff.
Yeah.
And from that, it's basically like a generative art program where it creates visuals but also creates a song at the same time. So I've made some paintings from that, but I also want to flesh out the music part of that.
Yeah.
And so, in other words, my paintings might also have I would hesitate to call it music, but an audio aspect to them. Yeah, I'll be continuing to just like in my personal art world stuff, just doing a painting, drawing, but moving it in and out of the digital realm.
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay.
Right now, I have a show up at Pizza J.
Cool. Oh, it's still going on?
Yeah, and there's I did a whole bunch of paintings with blacklight, and some of those are up right now, and I'm going to put some more up this week.
Yeah.
So if you want to see what
At Jay's? At Pizza
Yeah.
Jay's? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. How long is that going to be up until?
I think they're saying the mid-March now.
Oh,
so it'll be
cool.
up for a while.
All right. Sounds good.
What else are we working on? Well, I'm going to do an installation as part of this Bish Bash show.
Okay.
I'm going to have...
That's going to be open to the public?
Yeah. Mine's going to
right.
be projections, beanbag chairs. It's going to be like the chill-out room.
All right.
Like the psychedelic relaxation room.
Sign me up, man.
I'll think of some other stuff to do.
March 21st, did you say, was that? The Bish Bash?
Yeah.
21st?
21st. I think that's a Saturday.
Right
Yeah.
after my birthday. All right.
Yep. When's your birthday?
18th.
I'm the 8th.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Pisces.
Pisces. Sweet, man. Water sign.
The fish.
I guess we're supposed to get along. Pisces is supposed to get along,
I
I
don't
guess,
know.
with each other.
I have no idea.
I don't have a problem with anybody. I'm cool with that. All right, man. Hey, well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for sitting down with me and doing this. Then thank you for
Hopefully
this.
you have some usable stuff.
Oh, yeah. Plenty, man. I mean, like, it's like I said, this was such a strange concept, actually, to suggest the compilation as the featured record.
My friend Jonathan said that compilation's cheating, man. And I was like,
No.
why is that? Exactly.
Well, it's because it's a
no,
learning
but Jonathan's just a
experience.
miserable. He's just a miserable.
Are you talking about Weishart?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well,
So-
there's nothing. There's nothing complimentary out of his mouth.
Yeah. So, because I think he was also trying to figure out what he would pick, but
Yeah.
he did say that we had actually a pretty heated debate whether a mixtape would qualify, and I said no, I don't think it would because it's not commercially available. So
Yes.
So one of the parameters of this is that you have to be able to,
Yeah.
search it or.
Well, okay. Let me reiterate this just to make it clear
Okay.
that the show has been evolving into a couple of different things, and I think that primarily now I have basically declared it as being a piece of work that is influential to your being, to like whatever it is that helps influence you to create. So, as from a musician's perspective, because typically I'll just speak to musicians, but in your case, obviously you're an artistic person, you're an artist first and foremost. So, what inspires your art?
Ah.
Now, I mean,
Now you're blowing the lid off the.
well,
Wow.
this still because this still applies because from what you explained to me about how you wanted to kind of first of all help this inspired you to kind of find scenes, promote scenes, and how you were able to kind of pinpoint Rhode Island as having a scene and just respecting that enough to want to be part of it in one way or another. However, you can get yourself in there, which for you was through recording.
Yeah.
Offering the service to get people better recordings.
I definitely would say that when I'm painting and stuff, I listen to music, and I get very inspired by it. I also get, if I go to a good museum show,
Yeah.
but I sometimes will get literally just like so inspired after a show that
You'd wanna just
it's
go
like
home
I
and
drank
create.
5,000 cups of coffee or something.
Yeah, you want to go home and get all that inspiration out. And
Well, yeah, I need to go do something. I need
Yeah.
to go respond. I like to go to. Nothing's better than going to going out for like a cup of coffee, and then going to a really good museum show, and then going into the studio and freaking out, like turning up the tunes and just.
that's your prime day. That would be like your
That's the ultimate day.
ultimate day.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'd like to do that. JJ, we gotta get going. Thank you very much for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
No problem.